Do I really need to farm these garbage characters? You may be asking yourself. In this video, I'm going to talk about some early farming strategies for non-elite players and data for the Endor raid. I'm collecting and processing a lot of data on the raid, but it's all based on running the raid on auto at the lowest tier, since manual results can vary depending on the player. But first, please like and subscribe if you gained anything from this video. Just some bottom line up front advice. If you haven't already, you should be farming 2 or 3 characters up to the higher tiers, which means relic 5 or 7 depending on your resources, like right now. This raid has about maybe 7 or 8 months left, so the sooner you can make this happen, the better. This is not a video about what comps are best. There are plenty of videos about that, and frankly, most of us don't have rosters like the elite guys, so we can't put together the ideal comps in most cases. This video should help you figure out what to do with the roster you already have. Also, the amount of resources you invest should be proportional to the effort the rest of your guild puts into the raid. If your guild does the minimum, then you should probably only bump up 3 to 6 tunes. If they're going all in, then you're looking at improving 16 to 24 characters. Remember, this is all for better rewards, and the individual rewards aren't much. Let us get into the strategy for how to plan your farm. In this graph, you can see on my 4.5 million account the eligible characters I have and what gear level they're at. Each of these gear levels is associated with the highest tier they can participate in the raid. Higher tiers means higher rewards, except when it doesn't. I'll get into why that statement is confusing later. If you are following a better farming path than I am with my alternate account, you likely have a few more Relic 3 tunes because you probably farmed up some qualifying Imperial Troopers, Han Chewie, and if you bought the Lightspeed bundle, you have some Relic 3 Rebels now too. For my alt account, I'm going for Profundity, so I have a Relic 5 Hera, and I took my Akbar up to R7 for Fleet Arena in the meantime. I haven't had enough time and resources to bump up Han and Chewie and C-3PO. I also can't buy the Lightspeed pack because it's a free-to-play guest account. My 8 million account looks very different because I've packed in some Relic 5s for territory battle, and I have a good CLS and Imperial Trooper squads. I also bought the Rebel Lightspeed bundle, but that was after I made this graph. These two accounts are very different, but the strategy I'm going to use to farm efficiently is going to be the same. I made this goal graph a couple of weeks ago, and I'll tell you why I thought it would work. First, the preliminary data that I'm collecting shows a few trends. High relics aren't making a big difference in lower tiers, except when duos are involved. When I say duo, I mean 2-man team, but I'll get into duos later. But what I mean by high relics aren't making a big difference in lower tiers is that running relic 5s in tier 0 is not going to improve your score much. You would think relic 5s would max out tier 0, but it's not true. They only seem to improve the score about 10 or 20% on auto. 2. Pushing a couple of random characters into higher tiers makes more of a difference than pushing a lot of ideal comp tunes into lower tiers. In the crate raid, you could do your part by getting a whole squad of one faction to gear 12 or relic 3, but in this raid, unless you already have a lot of these tunes reliced up, you'll do better running 3 relic 5 rebels together at tier 4 than you will be running 2 relic 5 tunes with a gear 12 tune in tier 1. So just so you can make the ideal composition, it's just going to be worse. Number 3, duos may do better 1 tier below their max tier. I've seen runs where this is true, but I've also had runs myself where they did better in the highest tier, so you may want to test this out. This slide was a really early plan, but I abandoned it really fast after testing. This slide shows a plan to make a bunch of duos to maximize points with minimal characters. The reason I'm finding focus farming duos doesn't work. It doesn't work because there was some data out there and some Discord bots suggesting that high relic duos were the way to go. So I played with a bunch of these duos for hours. The duos were not pulling up the numbers that the bot said they would. Then I tested them out with a third character and the numbers were much better. I'm not talking about like 33% better like you would think. I'm talking 200% better. As an example, the bot suggests I run Akbar with Death Trooper and I scored 154,000 points. That's below what I consider to be average on tier 0, which is about 200,000 points. I threw those two under a wedge lead and scored 747,000. Granted, it was a tier up, but I don't believe the tier made the difference. One mistake I made at the suggestion of a guildmate was boosting up Han Solo to Relic 8 to get him and Piet on the highest tier for more points. It turns out I got a lower score on the highest tier and it didn't improve my score on tier 5 at all. So what I want you to do right now is get out of the normal team composition mindset. Team compositions are good, but it's not the best way to think about this unless you're an elite player. And get out of the mindset that the bot will optimize things for you. And I want you to think more about the points per character or PPC mindset. There are a lot of team compositions that work well within the factions, like this team with Lando, Hera, and Chewie. They're all rebels and they all work very well together. There are also a bunch of combinations that the gerbil talks about, like Ewoks that give evasion out to troopers, and the troopers use those stacks to deal extra damage. One quick tip I want to give out if you are not running things on auto. If you're using the strategy of giving evasion to troopers, when your troopers use their basic, they use all of that evasion. So if you have a trooper that has an AoE and an enemy that has really low damage remaining, I'm talking 4 stacks of damage left, go ahead and pop the AoE and save the evasion boosted basic for the enemy that has a lot of damage left. The best farming strategy I can suggest right now is to plan out what teams you want to farm for the next 3 to 6 months. Now, move any of the characters in that plan that are also part of the raid to the front of your farm. Whatever characters you end up boosting can be paired up somehow to get some good scores. Alright, that's all I have for now. Please like and subscribe. I'm also working on a video about Darth Sidious's leadership. You think it's just an old, outdated leadership, but I want to show how it's still relevant and why they probably won't update it. Alright, keep building those characters. I know I will. Bye.